CNN 10 is taking you to Egypt for our first story this Tuesday. I'm Carl Azus. Thank you for watching the show. Polls are open in the North African country of 97 million people. A 3-day-long election began on Monday that will determine the next president of Egypt. But experts say that's a foregone conclusion, that the country's current leader, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, is certain to win another term. This is Egypt's third election since longtime leader Hosni Mubarak was forced out of power in 2011. At that time, like several countries in the Middle East and North Africa, Egypt saw a wave of protests against its government that led to significant changes in leadership. But today, like several of those same countries, Egypt continues to struggle with economic problems, limited opportunities for its people, and terrorism. President Sisi was first elected in 2014, and a win this week would bring his second and last 4-year term. One reason why the vote is being watched worldwide is because if turnout is high, it's possible President Sisi will try to change Egypt's constitution so he can serve longer.
Let's take a ride around the streets of Cairo. If you haven't noticed, Egypt is having a presidential election. A kaleidoscope of campaign posters wallpapers the city. But you might have noticed something missing: the opposition. It's not my fault, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said in an interview. I swear to God, I wish there would have been more candidates for people to choose who they want, but they were not ready yet. There is no shame in this. There were high-profile contenders, but Egyptian authorities arrested former Army General Sami Anan on a number of charges. Ahmed Shafiq, a former 2012 presidential candidate, withdrew amid reports of intimidation. Human rights lawyer Khaled Ali withdrew after saying he was under pressure from authorities. Mohammed Anwar Sadat, the nephew of late Egyptian President Anwar Sadat, also says he felt pressure to withdraw. After searching, we finally found the subtle posters of Musa Mustafa Musa, a last-minute and little-known challenger.
President Sisi was going alone in this game, and if he falls, we all fall.
Musa is accused of being a stooge of the government, a tool to give the election the veneer of legitimacy. He denies this and insists his platform makes him the better candidate. No one doubts Sisi will win. The real challenge is voter apathy. His Get Out the Vote campaign aims to drive Egyptians to the polls and give him the broad mandate he needs for another 4 years. Ian Lee, CNN, Cairo.
If you were lucky enough to win the Powerball 1,000 times, that's how unlucky you would have to be to actually get hit by a piece of this thing.
From a falling space station to the rise of e-commerce, the U.S. Census Bureau estimates that Americans spent more than $453 billion last year buying stuff online. E-commerce sales have been growing for years now, so that's not new. What is are the challenges this creates for shipping companies. They have to continually upgrade and expand to keep up with the amount of items being shipped as opposed to bought in a store. For a sense of how all that's managed, we're visiting a United Parcel Service facility in the Bluegrass State.
Hairspray for Houston? dog food for Dallas, samples to Sydney, a contract for Kansas. Sorting parcels seems so simple. The goods come in, they're sorted, and then they leave. But when your warehouse is bigger than 90 football fields and you're handling 2 million packages a day, there's no room for a snooze at the UPS Worldport hub in Kentucky. In charge of it all is Jason Foote.
This facility, while on a normal day may only process 2 million packages, during peak season will handle more than double that.
Well, only that's an enormous number.
It is, but it's what we do every day.
Cameras and conveyors everywhere. 155 miles of moving belts. While automation is key, humans remain part and parcel of this operation. Many of them working here are local students, and the pace is relentless. This is never ending. Hour after hour, these small packages flow into this tidal wave of sorting that now has to take place to ensure these little packages end up in the right destination. That's where the humans come in. They're needed to fill freight containers to the brim.
What you want to do is you want to build up as high as you can, right?
Kyle is the supervisor and showed me how. Think of playing Tetris.
You're building a wall, you want to go as high as you possibly can, right? And then what you want to avoid is making columns. But when you get all the way to your height, you want to then build out.
Suddenly, a song came into my mind. Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made with ticky tape, little boxes on the hillside, and they all look just the same. Live crickets. Crickets in the cargo, and Amazon logos grinning down on me everywhere. It's all very complicated. E-commerce is what's filling these containers. It's about 1:30 in the morning and the tempo has increased. Roughly 380,000 packages an hour are now flowing into the Worldport. My parcels depart as quickly as they arrived, as those metal containers slide towards the planes. Amid all this high technology movement of commerce, there's a delicious simplicity about the way these containers are dragged around by hand. The fact is, as the network grows with demand, so does the risk of problems and challenges. It's a fine balancing act for those in control.
We have 120 aircraft coming in, so it's bound to happen tonight, but we do it every night. We make that balance every single night.
And that's when you're called up and they say, is that right?
No, we have about 10,000 people who are working at night that do a great job. They don't even need me.
Kentucky is UPS's biggest facility, and it's not big enough. Future expansion means the place will handle 500,000 packages an hour. As our love of e-commerce grows exponentially, so does this logistics powerhouse.
Charles has a head filled with motors. We're not insulting someone. We're reporting on a robot at the University of Cambridge. It's named Charles, and its built-in servos help it mimic human facial expressions. Cameras and computers factor in here. They record and analyze positions of real people's facial features and then send them over to Charles, who appears to imitate their expressions. So what's the value here? Researchers are trying to figure out if a more expressive robot is better at engaging the people who interact with it. So does that make Charles two-faced or multi-faceted? It's time to face up and face facts. Some folks may make it about face if they came face-to-face in a face-off or had to FaceTime with a face they didn't trust. Guess it all comes down to whether you want Charles in charge of your facial expressions. I'm Carl Azus for CNN 10.